Do you think that there are different types of cells? For example, do you think the cells in your body are different from those in yeast or in plants? Well, biologists recognize two types of cells: prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotes are the simplest and most ancient forms of life. These cells lack a nucleus. The pro stands for before, and karyon stands for kernel, referring to the nucleus. So prokaryotic basically means before the nucleus, as they don't have one. About 2.7 billion years ago, prokaryotes gave rise to eukaryotes, whose cells do contain a nucleus and other membrane-bound organelles. The EU stands for true, therefore true nucleus. Prokaryotes are the most abundant and diverse organisms on Earth. All prokaryotes exist as a single cell. They are all unicellular organisms. These cells are very small, typically ranging from 1 to 10 microns in length and 0.2 to 2 microns in diameter, with very simple internal structures. In general, prokaryotic cells have no membrane-bound organelles, which are functional units that are found in more complex cells. Until recently, prokaryotes were classified into a single domain. In 1977, however, microbiologist Carl Woese detected differences that suggested that some prokaryotes represent a completely different form of life, and as a result, prokaryotic cells are classified into two domains: bacteria and Archaea. You're probably most familiar with bacteria, as it can cause certain illnesses. Some species, such as E. coli, can cause food poisoning, or Streptococcus can cause sore throats, otherwise known as strep throat. But other bacteria live on your skin and inside your intestinal tract, which are essential for good health. Bacteria are also very, very valuable in research, food and beverage processing, and pharmaceutical production. For example, yogurt, cheese, and soy sauce are all made with bacteria. In ecosystems, bacteria play critical roles as decomposers and producers. Bacterial cells are structurally simple. Like all cells, they have a cell membrane that separates the internal environment from the external environment of the cell. Bacteria also have a rigid cell wall that surrounds the membrane, protecting the cell and preventing it from bursting if it absorbs too much water. It also gives the cell its shape. Encasing the entire cell is a capsule, a layer usually made of polysaccharide, a type of carbohydrate. Many bacteria can swim in fluids. Flagella are tail-like appendages that enable these cells to move. One or more flagella are anchored in the cell wall and underlying the cell membrane. They rotate like propellers, moving the cell forward or backward. Small hair-like structures called pili are also found on the outside of bacteria cells. Pili can help with movement, similar to flagella, but they also can help exchange DNA between cells and assist in attaching bacteria to different surfaces. Inside the cell, the granular or spotty substance making up the internal bulk of the cell is called the cytoplasm. The chemical reactions that enable the cell to live are carried out here. The cytosol is the fluid part of the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is made up of the cytosol together with the internal structures such as the organelles. The genetic material is not encased in a nucleus. Bacteria contain DNA in a single circular chromosome. The area inside the cell where you find the chromosome is called the nucleoid region. Numerous smaller rings of DNA called plasmids may also be present in the cytoplasm. These can reproduce independently of the main chromosome. The only distinguishable organelles scattered freely throughout the cytoplasm of prokaryotic cells are ribosomes. Ribosomes are essential in the production of proteins. Cells producing large amounts of proteins have the greatest number of ribosomes. And proteins are needed for things such as cell growth, repair, and the general function of cells. Bacteria are usually one of three different shapes, although there are variations. They are either rod-shaped, known as bacillus, round, or coccus, spiral, also known as spirillum. Archaea cells resemble bacterial cells in many ways. They have their own domain because they build their cells out of biochemicals that are different from those in either bacteria or eukaryotes. Their cell walls and flagella are chemically unique. Their ribosomes are more similar to those of eukaryotes than to those of bacteria. Therefore, they may actually be more closely related to eukaryotes than they are to bacteria. Archaea were originally thought of as extremophiles because scientists discovered them in habitats that were extremely hot, acidic, or salty. However, this type of cell has now been discovered in a variety of habitats, including soils, swamps, oceans, and even in your mouth. There is a large diversity of organisms, including humans, that are made of eukaryotic cells. These all belong to the domain Eukarya and include yeast, mushrooms, and other fungi. Plants are also eukaryotes, and so are unicellular protists, such as amoeba and paramecium. Eukaryotic cells are larger than prokaryotic cells. They're typically between 10 and 100 microns in size. Similar to prokaryotic cells, eukaryotic cells are surrounded by a cell membrane. They also have a cytoplasm contained inside the cell membrane. However, the internal structure of eukaryotic cells is made up of various organelles. Organelles are compartments that carry out specialized functions, just like the organs in your body, which is where they got their name from. Different organelles carry out different functions or different jobs. They assist in processes such as cellular respiration and photosynthesis. The two most common eukaryotic cells you will look at in a biology classroom are animal cells and plant cells. This is the image of the cross-section of an animal cell, as if you'd cut the cell in half. Immediately, one of the most prominent organelles in the eukaryotic cells of both plants and animals is the nucleus that is clearly visible using both light and electron microscopes. The main molecule found within the nucleus is the same nucleic acid making up prokaryotic chromosomes, which is called DNA. Similar to prokaryotic cells, DNA is bundled into chromosomes that code for the production of proteins. But in eukaryotes, chromosomes are not circular, but are rod-shaped and are visible during cell division. The nucleus is said to be the control center of the cell. By coding for different proteins at different times, the nucleus can coordinate the activities of a cell. Other organelles in an animal cell include temporary vacuoles, which act as storage sacs, Golgi apparatus, also known as Golgi bodies, which are a system of membranes that package and store substances before their release, endoplasmic reticulum, which are a transport system for substances both inside the cell and for substances leaving the cell, the mitochondrion, which are the site of cellular respiration, and ribosomes, which are the site of protein synthesis. Plant cells differ from animal cells in that they have a cell wall that surrounds the cell membrane to provide extra support and protection. They also have chloroplasts, which are the site of photosynthesis. Plants also have large permanent vacuoles, which are fluid-filled spaces that store various materials and they also help cells to maintain their structure. You'll get to know many of these organelles in much more detail, but for now it's important that you're able to recognize each of these organelles in both drawings and micrographs, and micrographs are simply images that are produced by microscopes, and you also have to get to know their basic function. I find the easiest way to remember the structure of both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells is to be able to draw them, and I've done another video tutorial on how to draw these types of cells.